The story of the plagues in the Bible is found in the book of Exodus, chapters 7 to 12. It recounts how God used 10 devastating plagues to compel Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to release the Israelites from slavery. The plagues were a direct challenge to Pharaoh's hardened heart and the gods of Egypt, showcasing God's power and sovereignty. Here's a summary. 1. Water turned to blood. The Nile River, essential for Egypt's survival, was turned to blood, killing fish and making the water undrinkable. 2. Frogs. Frogs swarmed everywhere, in homes, beds, and ovens, causing widespread chaos. 3. Gnats. Dust turned into gnats that covered people and animals. 4. Flies. Swarms of flies invaded the land, except for the area where the Israelites lived. 5. Livestock disease. A plague killed the Egyptians' livestock, sparing the Israelites' animals. 6. Boils. Painful boils broke out on humans and animals alike. 7. Hail. A storm of hail and fire devastated crops, livestock, and people caught outdoors. 8. Locusts. Locusts consumed any remaining vegetation after the hail. 9. Darkness. A thick, oppressive darkness covered Egypt for 3 days, symbolizing spiritual blindness. 10. Death of the firstborn. The final and most devastating plague struck down the firstborn of every Egyptian family, including Pharaoh's own son, but spared the Israelites, who marked their doorposts with lamb's blood, as instructed by God. The plagues culminated in Pharaoh finally releasing the Israelites. This series of events demonstrated God's power, justice, and mercy, setting the stage for the Israelites' exodus and journey to the Promised Land. The story is a profound reminder of God's ability to deliver his people and his ultimate authority over all. The story of the plagues isn't just about ancient Egypt, it's about the human condition. Pharaoh's pride and refusal to change are reflections of something we all wrestle with. How often do we resist letting go of things that harm us, clinging to control even when it's clear that change is necessary? The plagues challenge us to confront our own stubbornness and open our eyes to the opportunities for transformation that are often disguised as discomfort. The first plague, the Nile turning to blood, symbolizes the corruption of life sources. In today's world, the things that sustain us, like relationships, technology, and even the environment, can become toxic when misused. Social media, for instance, was designed to connect us, yet it often leaves us feeling more isolated and divided. This plague asks us to examine what in our lives has become polluted and calls us to seek restoration. The plague of frogs, though strange, serves as a reminder of how our lives can be overrun by distractions and chaos. We live in a culture of constant noise, where endless notifications, commitments, and pressures drown out what truly matters. This plague asks us to pause, simplify, and remove the unnecessary things that disrupt our peace. Gnats and flies might seem small and insignificant, yet they represent the little irritations and unresolved issues in life that swarm around us. Over time, these minor stressors build up, becoming overwhelming. The lesson here is clear. Address the small problems before they grow into something unmanageable. The disease that struck the livestock is a sobering reminder of how interconnected we are with the systems around us. The COVID-19 pandemic showed us how fragile and dependent we are on global structures. This plague calls us to take responsibility for the world we've created and to build systems of care and resilience for one another. The boils force us to confront suffering directly. In the modern world, it's easy to suppress pain or distract ourselves from it, but this only leads to deeper wounds. Whether it's mental health struggles, unresolved trauma, or systemic injustices, the lesson is to face these issues head-on and seek healing, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. The hailstorm and the swarm of locusts show us the power of destruction. Natural disasters, economic collapses, and even personal failures remind us of the fragility of life. But in every destruction, there is an opportunity to rebuild. These plagues challenge us to find hope and renewal and to work together to create something stronger from the rubble. The plague of darkness is perhaps the most relatable today. Many people live in a state of spiritual or emotional darkness, feeling lost, alone, or without purpose. This plague speaks to the human longing for light, for hope, connection, and meaning. Even in our darkest moments, there is a call to look for the light and move toward it. The final plague, the death of the firstborn, is the most difficult to process. It forces us to think about what truly matters and what we're willing to let go of to protect what's most important. It's a moment of reckoning that calls us to release the things that enslave us, whether it's pride, fear, or the pursuit of power, and focus on what brings life and freedom. The story of the plagues is ultimately about liberation. Pharaoh's refusal to listen mirrors our own resistance to change, even when we know it's what we need. The message is clear. Transformation often comes through discomfort. The plagues ask us to examine the signs in our own lives and to consider what might need to change for us to be free. For a secular world, this story isn't just about ancient miracles. It's a call to freedom. It's a reminder that we often cling to things that harm us, resisting the very changes that could bring healing and growth. It's about recognizing the moments in life when we need to let go and trust that something better awaits on the other side. What would it take to step out of our own Egypt today? Maybe it's releasing a harmful habit, seeking reconciliation in a strained relationship, or simply pausing to reflect on where we're headed. The story of the plagues isn't locked in the past. It's alive, speaking to us today, and inviting us to consider the possibility of liberation. The God of this story is not one who desires destruction, but one who desires freedom. The plagues were not just acts of judgment, they were acts of love, breaking through Pharaoh's resistance to set an enslaved people free. That same call to freedom is available to us today. For anyone who feels stuck, overwhelmed, or lost in the pressures of life, take heart. Freedom is possible. Change is possible. Even in the midst of chaos, there is hope for renewal. This story reminds us that liberation comes through struggle, but it's worth it. Just as the Israelites walked out of Egypt toward a promised land, we too can step out of whatever enslaves us and move toward a life of greater peace, purpose, and connection. The question is, will we listen?